Hi, this is Darren Root coming to you as Executive Editor of CPA Practice Advisor with episode 65, Randy, of Tech to Go.
It's simply amazing that we've been together that many times for this type of topics.
Well, this is our maiden voyage of our updated version of Tech to Go. So Randy and I are coming to you, and our goal here is to make this a little bit more interactive, a little bit more visual for our listeners, and hopefully a little bit more beneficial. So Randy, we're coming to them with our first Skype recorded episode of Tech to Go. So it should be a fun one.
It should be. In fact, video gives us a chance to show a few things. So I have a couple items for show and tell today, and hopefully the viewers will get some benefit from different things we can do in video that we couldn't do in just voice.
Absolutely. Well, our goal is also to be able to peel out the audio from this, Randy, so that we can still have a podcast for audio only. But for those who want to kind of see what we're doing and do some show and tell and be more interactive, then we'll have the video as well. So should be fun. And now I get to see what really drives you, which is obviously Snoopy watching over you in the background.
Well, you know, I've been a Peanuts fan for 50 plus years, and you just have to visit my home and figure out plenty of memorabilia. I'm almost as well decked out as the Charles Schultz Museum in California.
Ah, funny. All right, so we've got some topics today. There's so many things that you and I can talk about today, but we're going to start out by talking about CCH's most recent launch of CCH Access. And Access in this case, I believe, is spelled, is it ACCXESS or ACXESS?
Well, you know, the spelling on that is rather interesting because from a marketing perspective, obviously what CCH was trying to do was say that they really have access, and in the naming, I believe they put the X first, so it's like, a combination
Okay.
of access and so forth. So it'll cause, unfortunately, on a branding perspective, a little bit of work on their sides, but it's AXCESS. So
Yep.
the X is first, access.
So give us a little bit of an overview of what they've done with this new branding and launch.
Well, of course, we've been involved with CCH on the evolution of this next generation product. So this really is next gen delivered. It had been through alpha and beta in firms. I had a small firm completely on all of their products the past 2 years, one this season, and the practitioner basically said went flawlessly for the whole season.
Wow.
Now, we're going to discover, or our listeners will discover later in this conversation, some other practitioners didn't have a flawless season with some of their tax products. But this firm just beautifully in the cloud. CCH has their data center running out in Plano. They'll have redundant data centers and all those features, but their core applications include their tax product, their practice management. Document actually works superbly in this environment. Their next generation portal is up there, as well as Workstream, their workflow product. The only real product that's not in the mix that a CCH firm would need is their engagement manager.
Yeah.
They also do Microsoft Office in the cloud, and so if you think about taking everything that you've got from a CCH user perspective and pushing it up into the cloud, you can do it with this product. The licensing costs are still a little bit in the air. I've seen some numbers, but they're not firm. But let's call it $1,500 to $2,000 per user is about the right zone.
Per year.
Per year.
Right. So, you're talking, what, 125, 150 bucks per month per user, and
Yes.
you're picking up all those solutions at that point. Okay.
You are. And the one stumbling block, I think, on the Access product, tax initially did not have all of the same features as the regular Pro System tax on the desktop. So they've been closing the gap on those feature differentials. That really was more of a development cycle thing. And so this past season, the field salespeople were held back from selling this tax solution compared to global tax, a completely different approach, simply because they didn't have quite the consolidations and some of the other features. But I think at this point, most of our listeners would not have to worry about this at all. So if we've got listeners who run very small but very sophisticated practices, this gives them a chance to have some exceptionally strong tools with very little installation complication.
Well, I think the other key benefit that you gain here is this common client database that they've talked quite a bit about, which is pretty exciting when you think about it. I mean, the idea that we go in, I've looked at Access quite a bit, and you obviously spent a lot of time with it, but you're really, they've really rethunk, I'm not sure how you say this, the process where, we're historically used to going into an application and then doing something. We go into our tax application, we go into our practice management application. I think CCH has rethought the process here, and they said, okay, you're going to go into a client and you're going to do a task then. So I go into a client and I've got my client common database, and I do a 2012 tax return inside that client, or I'm tracking time. So I'm kind of in a common space just doing a task. Am I kind of saying that right, do you think?
Conceptually, you've got it really spot on, and if you use all the products, including WorkStream, for doing workflow management, then you get the benefit of that type of style. See, if we think today about the Thompson CS suite and how the database really does work together, it's really handing data back and forth between the different modules that they've written. CCH under the covers is still doing it a little bit like that, but the way it's presented on the screen, it really is this client orientation, this task orientation that you're talking about. So it's more of a project that you're working on, and it has all the steps in the project. And if you need a tool from another module, it just appears as kind of the next tool in the process, and you just continue to go through it. So if you're going to do a trial balance and maybe tax adjustments, and then pull it into your tax return, it just kind of flows through the process.
On a common client database that they're working really hard, and I know they've launched the mobile component of this that will actually flow on out to, let's say, your iPad or your Droid, and really have your office wherever you want it to be.
Really does, and when you think about this mobile access, if you're a reviewer and you just need to sign off on a particular step, you can do that from the mobile device with the way they've architected this. Even though today we might think that Thomson's all-in-one database is more comprehensive, the way CCH has built this is very strong. In a prior podcast, we talked about their APIs that allow third parties to access these databases. So for larger firms, they can build their own custom integrations, and the firms that I've talked to that are building those are saying, look, we're getting to data that we've never gotten to before, and we can put it in our SharePoint workflows, for example.
Sure.
So that's a pretty interesting addition. Now, most of us won't go down that level, but knowing that vendors can do that, that has really triggered a whole new ecosystem on the CCH application and platform, and the vendors are kind of building around this now. So we'll see even more innovation now that the product is released and in the market.
One big takeaway I think from this, and you and I have talked a lot about this in the past, is we're looking at CCH now and Thompson both, who are making significant commitments to having access anytime, anywhere, and getting infrastructure out of client office, out of firm offices, right?
That's right.
Intuit, I believe, is pretty focused on this as well. If they haven't already, they will be shortly releasing their practice management app back out in the marketplace. Do you know if they've released that back out?
It is released.
Okay, so again, another cloud-based app that's going to integrate with their tax, their online tax product, their QuickBooks Online product. So again, all three of the major guys are working diligently in this space.
They really are, and if you consider Intuit as an example here, during this tax season just completed, Intuit came out with the announcement of IPP version 3, which is their interface to both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop US and Canada. So now the developers can use this single interface to move data in and out. And as the year unfolds, we'll see more of these types of actions from Sage with their S-Data and their mobile releases. And interestingly enough, these players are on the Microsoft Azure data centers. And so we can get QuickBooks Online files moved around, and Intuit has a very strong and formal relationship with Microsoft on this usage. So if you think about our three big suppliers in the industry, CCH, Thompson, and Intuit, all having these data center, cloud, mobilized offerings, they're going to mature more over the next 3 to 5 years, but they're pretty usable today.
Absolutely. I mean, Thompson has a ton of people in their virtual office today. A lot of people that have, and in most of the clients, most of the firms that I know in that space are pretty happy. They're pretty happy with moving that firm infrastructure out of the office. So good. Well,
The 4 CPA firms I talked to this week, I had 3 of them consider to go to a virtual office because I said, look, your local IT guy is just doing a pathetic job for
Yeah.
you. All you really have to do is sign up into the work.
yeah, the firms are really challenged with their local IT companies. I mean, you guys at NMGI, you obviously do stuff for my firm, but you guys do a really good job. But you got to know firms. I mean, it's hard to find the random IT guy in Anytown, USA, and do a really good job with the technologies that we're trying to accomplish in firms today.
That's right. In fact, if you take the moving parts, let's say Citrix for mobile access, or you just try to get the Thompson databases tuned so they'll perform properly in-house, a lot of IT guys don't do that right.
Yeah.
The firm I was talking to yesterday on this issue, it was just an IT error to cause this firm suffering, in my opinion, the whole tax season.
Yeah, and that's what happens. And firms are busy; they're too busy to take the time to get it fixed, and so they suffer through it during busy season. This was not necessarily a pleasurable busy season to suffer through anything.
Boy, it was a tough one for a lot of people.
It was. I want to, Randy, move on to Windows 8. This one's got me a little bit nervous, and I know you're going to make me feel better about this. I don't know if I'm showing my age. I was talking to Doug Sleater the other day, and Doug's certainly a friend of both of ours, but Doug says, I've gone to the Droid. And I'm like, why? And because we're both iPhone users. He says, well, I'm trying to step out of my box, and I'm trying to figure other things out for people that I talk to. I just want to know. He says, boy, is it painful. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even want to go down that path. And so I started getting the feeling I'm understanding what some of these firms. You and I both love change. I mean, Doug likes change. But I don't know if it's my age or what it is, but I'm starting to feel like there's some things I just don't want to change. I'm pretty happy. So I don't want change for change's sake. So that's what's got me a little bit worried about Windows 8. My mindset right now is if I go to Windows 8, I've got to start touching my screen. And I'm kind of anal, and I don't like fingerprints all over my screens. And I've got 3 monitors here in my office. So I'll move this. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Did I move it right? Is it there? All right, so I got my 3 monitors back here. I don't want to reach up there and touch all those things. So tell me what I'm doing, what am I thinking about wrong here?
Well, part of this we said in prior conversations because Windows 8 is in fact optimized to work with a touchscreen. But here's our learning over the tax season while everybody's been busy. I would like to just frame everything saying we think Windows 8 is Windows 7 version 2. It's actually Windows 7 thought about and improved. And if you just set touchscreen aside for just a moment, you quickly realize that Windows 8 runs faster with less resources. Everything that ran in Windows 7 seems to run in Windows 8. So all of those drivers and all that technical stuff we don't like to worry about, none of it has to be worried about. My 2 biggest learnings on Windows 8 during these past few months, the first one is one that I've never claimed in my entire technical career. First, whenever a new operating system comes out, we recommend formatting the hard drives and reinstalling everything.
Okay.
With Windows 8, it absolutely does an upgrade in place, the best we can tell, flawlessly in every example that we've done so far.
Starting to sound like Apple.
It's like, wait a minute, I gotta tell you, those Apple upgrades, sometimes they fail.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And you know how that goes, but you're right. It's like all of a sudden, Windows Vista and Windows 7, just upgrade the darn for firms that maybe have specialized applications that are installed and working properly, normally when we put in a new operating system, we reinstall, or the old rule, when you buy new hardware, just leave it alone, never update the operating system, just leave it alone.
Yeah.
So that was a phenomenal shock, might be the right word to us, because we've never recommended that, and that is going to be our recommendation on Windows 8. An upgrade is okay. Number 2, instead of touchscreen, and I'm going to put this in the video so our viewers can see it, but you'll notice that I'm using a new generation Logitech Performance MX mouse. It's a very fine product, and I also have been using the Logitech T620 touch mouse. You'll notice what's odd about this mouse is it has no buttons, scrolls, or anything. It's a complete touch mouse. Now, as it turns out, these products are hooked up to your system with a unifying receiver. So it's just a little USB plug that you can put in. I need to put that back in my computer so it can actually work. But the unifying receiver can support up to 6 devices. So I'm also going to hold up my new generation K800 keyboard from Logitech. It's supposed to be the most ergonomically advanced keyboard that Logitech's ever made. It's a very nice keyboard. It's backlit and all sorts of things. The unifying receiver can have up to 6 devices attached, and so that kind of sets the stage. By the way, Microsoft has a similar approach. But what's important about something like the Performance MX mouse is it has button movements to support everything that you might do in Windows 8. What we found in Windows 8 when you launch the menu, the Start menu, which I wish we could share this as well, Darren, we'll figure that out. All you really have to do is move the mouse button to the right or left, and it scrolls to the menu
Okay.
to the left. Yeah, that makes it very fascinating and productive. Another thing that authors have written about, I think incorrectly, on Windows 8 is the Start button's gone, and that's counterproductive. Well, after using Windows 8 now, having the Start button gone is a godsend.
Really?
Yeah, it's like exactly the opposite of where I was on that probably the last time we talked about this. Now, we know that Windows 8 is supposed to have a new Windows 8 1 Blue, that the Start button's going to come back, and I'm thinking, that's pretty backwards, because I found myself more productive in Windows 8 not having the Start button, because the icons allow me to get to applications I need quickly, and I can launch them. Otherwise, I work from my desktop. And as it turns out, you and Doug had the right type of conversation, because for me also, and in this particular case, you can see I'm running Windows 8 phone, and have I showed you my grandchildren? so that you can see obviously I've got the granddaughters on there. But when I log in, I actually intentionally decided to try a Windows 8 phone for a while.
Okay.
And what I found is the icons on the Windows 8 phone, which automatically sync with my Windows 8 desktop, give me the ability to have all of my different applications running on my phone the same way they run on my desktop. So now if I want to check my calendar or email or Skype or whatever, I'm running the same way on my phone as I am on my computer.
So you're actually getting to where Microsoft wanted us to be, as sort of this unifying experience, unified experience between your phone, your laptop, your desktop, whatever the case might be.
Exactly. And see, as it turns out, on the Microsoft Surface, which is their version of the tablet, it's exactly the same experience. So on all 3 platforms, you can do that. Well, most of our listeners can relate to that best because of their experience with iPhones and iPads. If you think about the iPhone and the iPad, you're picking up a bigger screen and you can't make calls.
Yeah.
Unless you. But other than that, everything about the user experience is the same. And when you go to your Mac Air, Darren, oops, now you have to think about differently
Sure.
how to run that thing. Well, if you start understanding this platform idea, Microsoft's really got that accomplished right. So, for our listeners and users of Windows 8, we have found zero compatibility problems with any applications. We found better support of many devices like scanners and printers. The user experience is much more stable and quick. And frankly, with an orientation, that's the downfall. You have to have a simple orientation to understand, where you find the search and how you get to your menus and how you start things. 30 minutes, an hour, orientation, and all of a sudden you're past that and you realize this Windows 8 way of doing things is probably better than the any Windows version way of doing things.
So let's talk a minute about transitioning then in my firm. So got 11 people here that are ingrained in Windows 7 at this point. And why I mentioned that, let's just step back a second. And I think you told me that XP has less than a year's life on it before Microsoft's going to sunset that.
Completely sunsetted on all fronts in
Okay.
April. Actually, I believe the date's April 9, 2014. So we're within the year.
Okay, so if you're on 7, you're going to be on the last running version, right? All right, so I'm now sitting here thinking, okay, I've got staff that are productive. They're used to working in Windows 7. They're used to a start button. I'm going to have to think about replacing some PCs potentially this year. Do I start out by just getting my staff all at the same time sort of oriented to Windows 8 and we bite the bullet? More than likely I need to get it myself, get comfortable, figure out how to roll that out in my small firm. But what are you seeing there? What's the best way to go about that?
Well, here the best consideration is one that we've talked about in the past. In many firms, unfortunately, are in this position. Part of the reason we've talked about open licensing over the last 3 or 4 years in our podcast together is if a firm has their Windows and Office licensed properly, we can make a decision about what we choose to use. We can use Windows 8 or 7 or Vista or whatever back. Same way with Office 2013 or 10 or 7, and we can choose to move everybody at the same time. So, if you have Windows Action Pack, which many of our listeners bought because of our recommendation,
Yeah.
or if you have open licensing, then your IT team can actually build one brand new image of Windows 8 with the appropriate version of Office. Let's say right now it's Office 2010, but it might be 2013. And you can push that image to all the desktops relatively quickly. A firm like yours, now when we use Windows Deployment Services with these images, we could re-image all 15 of your users in about an hour.
Wow.
Right, and that's the wow is really right. And
Yeah.
part of the reason virtual desktops have that same effect is you can build the image and just turn it on and everybody gets it at once. So the way we deploy is changing pretty quickly. Now, here for your users, if we can get everybody to Windows 8 at the same time, we can have an orientation meeting, training, a lunch type of deal and say, look, over the weekend or tomorrow night or whatever it is, we're going to shift. Here's how it works. And when you come in, here's the things you'll have to know to be effective.
So a lot of firms, like you say, are on XP right now. So they're going to have to really think about where they're headed. I've probably got a little bit more life on my 7 machines, so I can have a little bit more time to be thinking about when I want to make this transition. Certainly don't want to make it during busy season, so maybe sometime between now and fall is probably what I'm thinking. If I buy a new machine today, am I going to be in Windows 8 on that new machine?
Chances are very good you're going to be in Windows 8 on that new machine. The versions that we recommend for CPA firms, out of all the ones available, Windows 8 Pro is
Okay.
the correct version because that gets BitLocker, which is the encryption you need for security breach reporting.
Okay.
Or if you buy a machine and it's pre-installed and you can convert it to an open license, then that would put you on Windows 8 Enterprise, which has some additional advantages of this deployment and the encryption still there and so forth. So
Okay.
that's really your best strategy. As you know, I actually have a new machine that I'm running off of, and I personally chose a touch machine just because I wanted to have the touch experience. And I got to tell you, I use my mouse to do a lot of the manipulations, but I still find myself going to the screen and actually running the screen, and I'll move things around, or in Microsoft PowerPoint, I'll stretch the images, bigger or smaller, just like you would on your iPad. In Office 2013, you can make the icons get bigger, and so they become touchable. So in Office 2013,
Okay.
And all of a sudden I can say, you know, there's certain tasks that I can do quicker touching the screen than I can touching my mouse.
Okay.
A lot of them I still do with touching the mouse though.
So I've got my Fujitsu FI 6140 scanner. A lot of firms have 6130s. Great scanner from Fujitsu. If I download Windows 8 and do the upgrade, is it going to update my driver? All that stuff's going to be seamless. I don't have to worry about.
In fact, we have not seen an exception to our rules so far. If it works on Windows 7, it works on Windows 8.
Great. That's going to take. So I think pretty good strategy this year is to start really thinking about this. And certainly, if you're on XP, you ought to be thinking seriously about making a move. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense to go to 7. It probably makes sense to go to 8 if you're an XP user. Is that a fair assessment?
It's more than fair because Windows 7's initial end of life is January of 2015.
Okay.
So, you know, you start thinking about our timing here. Why would I pick an operating system that in 18 months
Right.
is discontinued?
Yeah. Makes sense.
That one just, I can't picture a good reason to do that. So if you're going to culturally make the jump anyway, let's culturally make it to the new generation of equipment. Now, one other little twist, I wish I had it, but it was due yesterday, and then I got a delay notice. There is supporting technology, Leap Motion, that can turn standard screens into touch sensing machines. So like your 3 laptop setup, you can actually put a little sensor above those, and you can put your hand close without touching, so no fingerprints on the screen. Get your hand close, and it knows that you're moving the screen or the images are stretching.
Huh.
So I'll report in a future time together how that product works, but we've been following it since it was announced. We know that Hewlett-Packard made an agreement with this company about 3 weeks ago now. So, you know, it might be an alternate way to solving the touch screen problem. It's just to add this little $80 sensor.
Okay. I think last topic that we have. What time do we have? All right, we got a few more minutes. Let's talk a little bit about Office 2013. We're running 2010 in our firm right now. Pretty happy with that. What do I get, one, by going to 2013? I know we've had a little bit of some hiccups in our firm when we've upgraded a machine or two to Internet Explorer 10. We've had some challenges with that. So just give me the overlay of 2013.
Well, first off, we have to be compatible with our publishers. Most of the publishers will catch up to 2013 with announcements as the year unfolds.
Okay.
So I would not make the move right now. Number 2, the user interface changes a little bit between 2010 and 13. It's not radical, but it's enough changed that it will take some orientation training as well. Number 3, there are new features inside Excel 2013 that probably make it worth the move for those features alone. And some of those features are only available if you open license the product.
Okay.
Which is another, I see what you're doing, Microsoft, but wow. But for example, the old pivot tables or some of the power pivots and some of those things are only available now in this new generation product. And you're going to want those features because I can show you how to do a QuickBooks parsing in a blink of an eye in the new generation Office 2013, Excel 2013, and you can't do it in 2010 and before.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
I think that you said it a number of times, but I'd like for you to sort of just explain it to our listeners and viewers today, the difference between open licensing and not. What's the difference?
Boy, big question. We could almost go the whole hour, and you kind of know that. But summarizing it the best I can, Microsoft has an ongoing license agreement called open licenses. You get upgradability and use at home rights with an additional feature called software assurance, which you should always buy as a CPA.
Okay.
I don't say the word always lightly. Always buy it. Now, what's this do? Well, when you license the software, you pay a fee for the licensing once, and you pay the software assurance
Okay.
If you look at the cost of ownership of open license plus software assurance, it is cheaper than rebuying your office every time you buy a new machine. It also gives you the right to downgrade or upgrade. It gives you the right in Office 2013 to use the product on up to 5 machines instead of 2 with Office 2010. And the alternate thing that Microsoft's trying to push right now is Office 365.
Yeah.
It turns out open licensing is cheaper than Office 365, and I've got some grids to show you that. And Microsoft was messing around with pricing a lot during March and April. They changed it at least 4 times that we're aware of.
Wow. So am I right in thinking that open licensing is really moving me more towards a leased model?
Oh, it is absolutely a subscription leased model.
Yeah.
And Microsoft has it very much in their interest to do that. They're restricting some of the features and so forth. But you know, let's face it, how many of us have used Office for 8 or 10 years, right? And
Yeah.
how many of us looking into the future think we'll use Office into the future? There are a few competitors, OpenOffice and Google Docs and so forth, that will come along. But for our publishers of CCH Thompson and Intuit, I don't see those guys changing their products to accommodate these other products very much.
Yeah.
So for a 6 or a 9 year window, I would absolutely do the open licensing plus all of these upgradability, consistency in the office. So you think about how you try to teach people to use something, and if you buy computers, you know, at the rate of 1/3 per year in your firm, you wind up with different operating systems and different versions of Office, and it's just a mess. And in this case, you can stay back on the Office 2010 because that's in your interest right now. But maybe you decide that next year at this time you want to roll out 2013. You can do it all at once with no additional licensing fees.
Well, I think we're out of time, Randy. Good stuff today. So I'm going to try to summarize. One, we said CCH Access, pretty cool, stable, ready for prime time. So that's out there. Windows 8, firms should really be thinking about Windows 8 this year in a transition plan, particularly if you're on XP. Then that this fall, that ought to be a priority for a firm. Need to get that in our offices and start using it. If you're on Windows 7, you have a little bit longer, but if you're on Windows XP, you need to start making that move. Office 2013, open licensing, certainly in Microsoft products in general, but Office 2013 doesn't have to be a priority this summer, especially if you're taking on Windows 8. But if you want to stair-step those, Windows 8 may come first. Would that be right?
It well could for firms because of hardware replacements and the XP expiration.
Okay.
And Office 2010 on Windows 8 works beautifully. Likewise, Office 2013 on Windows 7 works beautifully. But when you put Windows 8 and Office 2013 together, particularly on a touchscreen laptop or desktop, wow, there's just all sorts of new things that just open up in the software that until I was running that way full time didn't realize were there.
Sounds like Microsoft is making some nice strides.
You know, the engineering that these guys have done, they're on again. You know, every once in a while they go to sleep, and every once in a while they wake back up. They're awake right now.
You know, I love it when these vendors wake up too. I mean, not that they were asleep, but I mean, I like it. I like it when Intuit has to wake up and pay attention on QBO because Xero's, you know, nipping away. And you know, it's always good. You know, QuickBooks got better when Office accounting came out. Microsoft gets better as Apple gets market share or Droid or whatever the case might be. This is good for us as firms.
It's superb for us. And in fact, all of these companies have some brilliant people that just want to do a good job. And when they're challenged, they really rise to the challenge in ways that we can't even imagine. They create new worlds that we can't imagine.
Well, this was our first maiden voyage of our video conferencing, so I kind of like this. This is good. I think this looks like a good option for the future.
I think it does. I can watch your face and you can say, oh man, he just say, oh BS.
There you go. All right. I'm just going to see if Snoopy walks out of the picture here in a minute. You're like, Randy's just said that. He said it again. All right, Randy, thanks a lot. You and I will be together next week in Tampa probably that event will occur before this gets out, but we're doing through CPA Practice Advisor our strategic partner retreats. So just a quick plug for those. What we're talking about, you and I, is the how to really engineer our firms for what we call a next generation accounting firm. How do we? You're talking specifically about on-premise and cloud and infrastructure, and we're going to talk about how to set up a business model and how to manage your practice and set your practice up differently. We're going to talk about web components, how important our web and social media components are to a firm. So this is not going to necessarily be anything product specific. It's going to be more strategy and how should we be thinking about our firms going forward. So it's a day-and-a-half event. The first one is in Tampa. It is next week, which is what, May 22nd-ish? Isn't that sound about right, maybe? 21st and 22nd. We have a couple others scheduled after that, so if any of our listeners or viewers are interested, they can certainly hop on CPAPracticeAdvisor.com and check out our future events. We have 2 more scheduled at this point this year, and sign up for those. So, Randy, thanks a lot. Enjoyed it today.
Pleased to be with you and look forward to another time.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching.